This nation was
founded by men of many nations and backgrounds.
It was founded on the principle.
That all men are created equal.
That all men are
created equal.
And that the rights of every man are diminished.
The rights of every man are diminished.
When the rights of one man are threatened.
Before diving into the topic of education as it relates to a conscientious conversation, let us begin by defining the constructs.
Public education. A school that is maintained at public expense for the education of the children of a community or district, and that constitutes a part of a system of free public education, commonly including primary and secondary schools. Private education. A school funded, conducted, and maintained by a private group rather than by the government, usually charging tuition and often following a particular philosophy, viewpoint, etc. Data source, dictionary.com. Observing the definition of public education, we should highlight the following concepts: maintained at public expense, and part of a system of free public education. And when it comes to the definition of private education, let us consider the following: funded, conducted, and maintained by a private group, and following a particular philosophy, viewpoint, etc. Private group and particular philosophy brings about a specific concern. Who is clearly identified as the private group? And what is the foundation of the particular philosophy? This is important to clarify, especially when analyzing the puppet masters pulling the strings, or the true stockholders influencing lives of so many young persons full of potential on a regular basis.
Roughly 85% of my knowledge was a result of self-education, rather than the 20 plus years of public and private education. Self-education and life experiences have undoubtedly assisted my life's journey and decision-making process. I point this out due to the current education model of teaching and learning strategies. It was not until I took a step back to analyze my thought process and patterns and approach to personal improvement did I recognize the fallacy. According to your level of education and social support systems, will strongly influence your methodology. For the sake of clarification, please check out this example.
Traditionally, in terms of education, the teacher teaches, the student retains information, teacher grades students' retention of information, student is given permission to proceed to the next level of education. In theory, this model should be a feasible system of education. However, this model does not offer cultural responsibility or unbiased teaching strategies. Therefore, the traditional student has a 20% chance of receiving a quality education and only a 5% chance of getting a fair opportunity to attain approval from the current population of teachers. It should be noted, however, that while the population of the U.S. students has doubled in the past few years, the population of U.S. teachers has tripled. This leads some to suggest that there are too many. In fact, in some areas, it is extremely difficult to entice teachers to work. These figures draw concern since they are not keeping up with the racial makeup of the United States. Schools that are predominantly Hispanic and Black might be lucky to have 1 or 2 teachers who are from their culture, and thus represent role models for our community. Concern for a lack of adequate cultural representation is especially great in urban areas. Children living in poverty are more at risk for criminal behavior. With fewer teacher role models who are of the same culture, the attempt to join gangs or simply lose interest in school is more prevalent. Like all people, children need connections, community, and a sense of belonging. In neighborhoods predominantly by one race, teachers of the same race may help provide a sense of community, which those of a different race may not provide. There are noted exceptions, yet many hope to encourage more minorities to teach, so minorities have more representation in education. And this is from What percent of the U.S. population do teachers comprise? 2019.
Before addressing this topic, I would like to begin by defining the term. What is homeschooling?
Answer. Homeschooling is a progressive movement around the country and the world in which parents choose to educate their children at home instead of sending them to a traditional public or private school. Families choose to homeschool for a variety of reasons, including dissatisfaction with the educational options available, different religious beliefs, or educational philosophies, and the belief that children are not progressing within the traditional school structure. Martin, 2012.
Based on personal experience as a teacher, guidance counselor, mental health specialist, coach, mentor, and club sponsor in the public and private sector of education, and according to the statistics for homeschool students, I completely understand parents' desire to choose homeschooling over public and private education.
However, rather than using my personal opinions to sway this conscientious conversation, I will share the benefits and advantages of homeschooling from the perspective of others.
Tailored instruction. In a class of 20 to 30 students, not all of the students in the class can receive all of the attention and assistance they need from one teacher. Many teachers love the one-on-one interaction they get to have with their students, but they can also find it very frustrating when they feel they can't give the individualized attention they feel that each student needs. Not all students learn the same way, but a public school teacher can only differentiate instruction so much for a class of 20 to 30 students. Choosing your child's curriculum. There are a number of curriculum options for parents to choose from. If you know how your child learns best, then you can choose a curriculum that is tailored to their specific learn style and educational needs. If you're customizing the curriculum for your child, an added advantage is the ability to accelerate learning in the areas where your child excels. For example, your child might be great at English but not so great in math. If this is the case, your child might be advancing at an 8th grade level of English while right on target at a 5th grade level in math. In a public school environment, the teacher bases instruction off of curriculum that they're responsible to get their students through. Unfortunately, there is a risk of students getting behind because they didn't master a skill before moving on to one that required mastery of the previous skill. Homeschooling and individualized instruction means that a student gets the attention they need and the assistance they need to master the skills required before moving on to the next skill. Flexible learning schedule and environment. Public school students experience what often feels like a grueling day in and day out schedule of arriving at school in the morning, sitting through 8 hours of classes, then go home in the afternoon. If you have a full-time job, you probably work at your job at least 40 hours per week. Just think about how students experience the same amount of time at school each week and how they often have homework which requires additional time outside of school. Many students find the classroom to be a very dull and cold environment that doesn't motivate learning. Teachers can decorate their rooms to alleviate some of this concern, but it rarely alleviates all of it. The typical student desk in a school is incredibly uncomfortable, and yet it's the place a student has to sit all day long. With homeschooling, you get to decide how to schedule your child's daily instruction, and it doesn't have to take nearly as much time in a day as it does in public school. You could start in the morning, or you could start in the afternoon and still have their daily instruction finished in time for other activities. A flexible learning schedule means more time for other things such as extracurricular activities or family time. Experiential learning. flexibility in learning environment is also great because your child's learning time doesn't have to be limited to the home. Students who are homeschooled often have more opportunity to participate in experiential learning activities that get them more engaged than they would be in a classroom. For example, your child could learn more about science by taking a nature walk than by filling out a worksheet, and the flexibility you have means that you can plan a nature walk or other field trips that would contribute to whatever your child is learning at home. There's also the opportunity to teach your child through project-based learning by allowing them to develop important life skills through projects that they're genuinely interested in and require complex thinking and doing. Experiential learning is a benefit that allows a student to learn and have fun at the same time. Independent thinking and character formation. Students in public school are often victims of groupthink, where students as a whole decide to behave in a certain way because they believe that it is the best and only way to belong to the group. Students feel the pressure to assume a certain type of identity that may or may not be their own and behave a certain way in order to feel like they are a part of something important. Unfortunately, the peer pressure that students face doesn't tend to lead students in a healthy life direction. Students often find themselves in the midst of a social hierarchy in public schools, and this leads to feelings of inadequacy and low self-esteem. Some students fall victim to bullying, which compounds the problem. With the social pressure that is created by the public school environment, it becomes very difficult for students to devote the attention and engagement they need to in their learning process. Homeschooling allows you to create an environment where your child can be distanced from the negative peer pressure and bad influences that are found in the public school environment. If your child is with you each day, you have the opportunity to encourage them and help them develop a self-image that doesn't depend on the opinions of others. When you send your child to public school, they're not just learning academics, they're learning how to interact in the world. Unfortunately, how to interact in the world isn't typically an intentional component of a child's education in public school. Instead, it's caught by the way students interact with one another. Closer family relationships. Though it's not likely to be all wonderful all the time, homeschooling does give you the opportunity to build a strong, enduring bond with your child. You'll be available each day as a solid support for your child, and you won't have to miss out any of the important moments of discovery that your child experiences. Social benefits. Many people assume that homeschooled children end up having antisocial tendencies because they're never around other kids their own age. However, this is a common misconception because parents who are intentional about getting their children involved in homeschool groups with other kids or extracurricular activities end up helping their kids be just as social, and sometimes even more social, than kids who are in public school. A homeschooled child's social ability is largely dependent upon a parent creating or finding the opportunities for their child to develop their social skills. Because homeschooled children interact with their adult parent most of the time each day, they tend to be better at interacting with other adults than public school students. Learning with your child. If you decide to homeschool, you'll be teaching your child every subject they need to learn, and chances are that you're not certified in any of the subjects. Homeschooling gives you the opportunity as the teacher the added benefit of learning new information and skills right alongside your child. Academic excellence. Studies have shown that students who are homeschooled tend to perform better academically overall than public school students. When it comes to standardized testing, homeschooled students tend to score 15 to 30 percentage points higher than public school students. An interesting finding is that homeschooled students tend to perform better than public school students whether their teaching parent is a certified teacher or not. Homeschooling seems to produce students who are smarter and more mature than their public school counterparts. FAR, 2014.
The authors of this presented information concerning homeschooling shared a wealth of informative material and claims supporting the advantages and benefits of homeschooling compared to the traditional means of education, public and private. However, at the end of the day, the most important factors to be considered: what is the best option for your student or students? I believe the potential of today's youth is worth exploring the most feasible option for academic and educational success.
School is an institution, and so is the penal system. Therefore, voluntary institutionalization of the idea of systems. Homeschooling. Are you exercising your right to freedom and not allowing your children to experience certain limits and barriers during their learning process?
The institution of education in America has only taught me how the world views me as an N-word. That is why I have literally hated school since the first grade. And my feelings have yet to change, which is the reason I chose education as a career for so many years. It was my way of making a difference in the life or lives of those students who would have been mistreated and or underrepresented otherwise. Looking back, my elementary experience presented many unknown mental attacks and silent social programming. The only class or grade I can honestly say brought me joy, excitement, or any other feeling of belonging was kindergarten. After kindergarten, every following class or grade went downhill, and I was forced to attend an environment of harm instead of help.
Cages in school, stronger or stiffer disciplinary standards, etc.
Furthermore, my decision to self-publish non-traditional dissertations,
Cognitive and behavioral therapy, Road to Recovery, the core theory, the cognitive and behavioral approach to counseling and physical rehabilitation, and PhD, Doctorate of Philosophy, a Conscientious Conversation, were mainly due to a layoff. Although I was accepted into a doctoral program, Counseling Psychology Research at the University of Louisville, it greatly placed a hindrance on my motivation to attend a traditional institution of education for a doctoral program. Instead, I decided to develop a curriculum, or a programmatic model, through a self-guided philosophy, mind, body, and soul, core theory.
In conclusion, consider this. The United States has made humongous leaps and bounds concerning technology, but the framework for traditional education has not changed since 1635. Boston Latin School, Boston, Massachusetts.
However, due to charter schools and alternative learning environments, many students have been given an opportunity not allotted to many of us prior to 1991. Bluffview Montessori Schools, Winona, Minnesota. And based on these new opportunities for educational and academic advancement, I believe the educational systems of the U.S. deserve a conscientious conversation for the sake of the youth.